American Airlines will suspend all but 3 long-haul routes, park most wide-body jets. United Airlines makes further cuts to flight schedules amid crisis. Lufthansa to cut 95% of flights in survival mode. Cathay Pacific scraps 96% of all flights. Outrageous. Qantas criticized for standing down 20,000 workers without pay. Boeing plans 2-week shutdown of factories in Seattle area because of, and I can't mention that word because obviously I'll get demonetized. So guys, you guys know what the deal is today, right? Today we are going to be talking about airline stocks, right? We're going to be talking all about airlines, airline stocks, and stocks that are related to the aviation industry. And if you found yourselves on my video, then you most likely have some of these questions front of your mind. You might be wondering whether these airlines will go bankrupt, and if not, which one is the best one to buy. Okay, so we're talking, is it Delta Airlines, is it United Airlines, is it American, is it Southwest, maybe it's Boeing, right? And then for those who aren't that keen on airline stocks but are still bullish on the aviation industry and airlines in general, we're going to talk about some different alternatives. You can still get exposure through some different companies. So we're going to cover all of that throughout the video today. So as you have probably been following, the new bill, that's about a $50 to $60 billion bailout for the airline industry, and that doesn't actually include the separate payment to Boeing. And what this means is that airlines will be able to continue to pay their employees for an extended period of time. They're sort of forecasting September, so that's a good 6 months, and that allows them to either not make a lot of people redundant or not make anybody redundant so that they don't have to go through the pain of rehiring. For some of the smaller airlines, there are also opportunities for them to get acquired or merge to become a bigger airline or even a super airline. And if you have a look at some of the histories of the different mergers and acquisitions between airlines in the United States, and we're not going to talk about sort of Lufthansa, this is more focused on publicly traded US airlines. What you'll notice is that, 15, 10, 20 years ago, you had about 9 to 10 different airlines who held about 80% of the market share, okay? So these were the big guys. Fast forward to sort of 2019, 2020, 4 airlines now hold the 80% line share of the different business and air travel within the USA and also internationally. And that's due to different airlines either mismanaging their money or being acquired or merged, or for whatever reason, they combine the different airlines to become one super airline, okay? So we've got sort of 2 safety nets here. One is the bailout, and then one is the mergers and whatnot. The second question you guys might be wondering is, well, if that's the case, then which one is the best airline to buy, okay? And by all means, this isn't a recommendation for you guys to go out there and buy the airline that I'm covering. This is simply the research that I've uncovered throughout my looking into the different airlines, and I've concluded that based on my research in terms of both quantitative and qualitative data, that Delta Airlines is by far the most superior airline out of all of their peers, okay? And so, as always, guys, if you're liking my research and you're getting good insight and good value from this, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and stay up to date with all of my different videos. Okay, so Delta Airline, guys. Why is Delta Airline my favorite amongst all the other airlines? They have ranked year on year within the top 5 or 6 airlines in terms of the airline quality rating that's been running for 29 years. Furthermore, if you compare them with all of their peers, you'll see that their rating is actually on an uptrend. Delta Airlines is consistently bettering themselves year on year on year on year. And not only that, but as you can see, their overall score of minus 0.36, and I know that minus, it's like minus, shouldn't it be positive? It's just how they rate these things, okay? They are actually quite a lot ahead of the number 2, which is JetBlue, okay? So not only are they leading, but they're leading by a large margin. And so you guys might be wondering, well, what are some of the criteria that's involved with rating airline quality, okay? And as you can see over here, here's the list. We're not going to go through all of them. We're just going to go through the main ones. So if you want to just pause to see how they're scored and what the weighting of each score is, here's the list. And all of this information you can find from the Department of Transportation, okay? So Let's have a look at some of the different airline quality ratings. What you can actually see is that the likes of Alaska, American, they're consistently underperforming the sector, while Delta is consistently outperforming the sector. Furthermore, the likes of Alaska and American, they're kind of a steady downtrend, while Delta is going on a steady uptrend, okay? Frontier, downtrend. Hawaiian, sort of sideways, a little bit down. JetBlue's doing well, uptrend. And as you can see, Spirit, it's doing okay, but it's very, very volatile, right? It's very hit and miss. And what I like about Delta is they're consistently good. And as you can see, again, United, it's sort of hit and miss. It can be really good. It can be really poor. And that is the first reason why I prefer Delta over its peers. Now, the second reason is if you have a look at the on-time arrivals. Again, very important for custom NPS, satisfaction, retention, and repeat purchases, okay? What we can see is Delta, again, is very consistent, and they're consistently good. And compare that with the next runner-up, and as you can see, whilst they're not number one, they are consistently performing well. And what we want to see here is consistency. Next, let's have a look at involuntary denied boardings by quarter for US airlines, okay? And for those of you who aren't familiar with involuntary denied boardings, it effectively means that the airline has cocked up and they've overbooked, or for whatever reason, they have to forcibly move passengers off the plane. And again, if you have a look at Delta scores, it's almost perfection in terms of their scores, okay? The reason why it's important to not only keep the score low, but have it at 0 or as close to 0 as possible is because United Airlines. All right, guys. The other reason why I think Delta is leading the pack is because of their flight cancellation rates, okay? And I'm not saying that the other airlines are really, really, really poor and they cancel a lot of flights, but through good luck and Delta's business model, they've actually luckily avoided the whole Boeing 737 disaster. And the reason why that's important is because you have a large portion of the different airlines, your likes of your Uniteds or your Americans, a lot of that is sitting grounded. Now, obviously, every single airplane is sitting grounded at the moment, but when things do get back to normal, you can rest assured that Delta is going to ramp up a lot faster than their peers because they have no Boeing 737 exposure, which again allows them just to get back up and running and making a lot more money and having far less cost because of the whole Boeing fiasco. Next reason to be bullish about Delta Airlines. It's the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, okay? Believe it or not, this airport is the busiest airport in the world. It is busier than Beijing Airport. It is busier than LAX. It is busier than any other airport in the world, and that's due to its unique geographical location, whereby the large majority of America's population, apart from LA over there in the West Coast, is within a 2-hour flight from Atlanta Airport. And as you can see over here, Delta Airline commands the majority of the market share of this key location, which again means more people flying more often, flying Delta, more money for Delta. You can almost call it a quasi-monopoly, okay, with over 70% market share. Okay, guys, so those are some of the different qualitative data that I took you through. And now what I wanted to do is I wanted to take you through some quantitative data to back up my research. So as you guys can see here, I've hopped into my little margin calculated spreadsheet. And what we're going to go through is we're going to go through 3 key aspects, okay? Now, I know that there's a lot to cover, like assets and depreciation. Look, at the end of the day, it's an airline. It's going to be pretty similar, okay? But what I want to focus on is how efficient they are, how productive they are, and how good their margins are, because at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? Because no matter what you do at sell an airplane, you still have to employ people, you still have to feed people, and you still have to pay for fuel, okay? Now, metric number 1 is the fuel efficiency ratio. And as you can see over here, Delta Airlines fuel as a percentage of operating costs, it is the lowest among the 4 major airlines, okay? And some of you guys might be saying, well, 0.6%, 1%, it's not a big difference. Billions and billions of dollars over the course of a year, multiplied by 10 years, that is an absolute massive difference. And that is why Delta is the front runner in the sort of fuel efficiency metric. Okay, next metric. Now, let's have a look at some passenger data, okay? And what I really want to focus on is their margin, or their operating income per available seat mile, okay? Now, as you can see, Delta's not the highest, but they are, I guess, the most consistent and consistently high. Here, American, very, very poor, okay? We're talking, their margins are a bit hit and miss, and it's actually declining. Southwest, very, very good margins, but again, it is on a downtrend. And United, again, pretty poor, single digits, right? We don't want that. What we want is we want double digits, right? Now, 14%, they had a bit of a blip back in 2018, but as you can see, they brought it right back up, and it's on an uptrend. And this is what I like to see. Now, let's look at the final thing, okay? I want to talk about the loyalty program, because the cost of keeping a customer happy is only 1/5 of winning a new customer. So just remember that, okay, guys? So the more loyal your customers are, and the more that they think of you and only you first before they think of any of your competitors, that's very important. Delta, again, it's not the number one in terms of the loyalty ratio, right? In terms of the loyalty to overall revenue ratio. However, what I can see is that it's on an uptrend and it's slightly growing. Now, obviously, Southwest has the strongest loyalty program, as you can see here. Their loyalty to overall revenue, double digits, right? It's absolutely fantastic, and it's also on an uptrend. So that's one aspect that Southwest does lead Delta. But what I do like about Delta is that they are a lot more upfront with their disclosure in terms of the proportion of their ticket sales as a proportion of their overall revenue or their premium business. And as you can see over here, none of the other airlines disclose it, and United doesn't even disclose, anything about customer loyalty, right? I like a management team to be as transparent as possible. Now, Southwest might have a good loyalty program ratio, but what I want to know is what percentage of their revenue is the premium stuff, the good, high margin stuff, right? The business first class, right? We're talking about that. And again, Delta's the only one that discloses it. So in combination with an increasing uptrend for their loyalty program, this is again why Delta is the winner in my books. All right, guys, so there's a lot of reasons to like Delta Airline. But again, I myself, I prefer not to invest in an airline. Not because, for example, Delta's not good, but I prefer investing in airline alternatives because a rising tide lifts all boats. By investing in an alternative, you are investing in the entire aviation industry. By investing in one airline, you are putting a lot of your eggs in one basket. So for the risk reward, I prefer to diversify my risk. And that is why I prefer investing in an airport. Okay, so this is my go-to way to get exposure to the aviation and travel industry. And guys, if you want to see more about Auckland Airport, I made a video about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, talking about 4 stocks down 60% or more, and in there I do a deep dive on Auckland Airport. So have a look at the other videos on my channel if you're interested, okay guys? But personally, I'm exposed to the aviation industry through what I think is the best airport in the world, Auckland Airport. Having said that, there are also other ways to expose yourself to the aviation and airline industry apart from an airport. For example, you might be able to expose yourself through companies that do the different luggage services or the off-take or whatever you call it, moving that little trolley, moving the ramp. You can also expose yourselves to the like of a concession operator. So here are some ideas, right? A concession operator, for example, like a Corporación America Airports, okay, they have all of the little concession stalls, if you like to call it, right? So, duty-free, little retail shops. Those are all concession operators, okay? Bars, cafes, again, that's another way to expose yourself without putting all your eggs in one basket. Another company that you might want to look at is the likes of a John Menzies, who do all of the post-takeoff and pre-post landing services for the different airlines and the aircrafts, okay? Again, that's another way to expose yourself to the entire industry without banking all your money on just one airline. Another way of getting exposure is through the global travel management industry, right? So the likes of a Sabre, who do all of the different travel bookings, right? They provide airlines in the airline industry and the travel industry with booking platforms, technology, software as a service. Again, that's exposing yourself to all airlines, not just one airline. Boeing, right? Well, you probably wouldn't want to be getting Boeing now because of their 737 Max issues. But again, Airbus, right? People who make airplanes, or perhaps even people that make the components for the airplanes, right? Maybe it's a GE or a Rolls Royce for the engines. Maybe it's a Spirit Aerosystems making the different components and parts. So there are a lot of ways to expose yourselves to the airline industry without directly investing in an airline. Right, guys, so let's conclude the video, and I'll leave you with this quote here, which is, a rising tide lifts all boats. And that is what I mean, right? So just to summarize, I think that airlines are great, and I'm very bullish on aviation and air travel, and I'm very bullish for it over the long term. However, I prefer to invest in something that'll do well if the entire industry does well, rather than an airline that'll do well when things go back to normal. And again, that's why I have my money placed in Auckland Airport, because many airlines fly to Auckland. People love New Zealand. They'll go again. And no matter which airline takes you from your home to the airport of your destination country, that's going to benefit. Okay, guys, so that is the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, happy investing. I'll catch you in the next video.